Good evening, friends. A very warm welcome to this episode of Flexi Strong Talks. I hope you are taking good care of yourself and your loved ones. My name is Lokesh Nathani, and I want to thank each one of you for joining this evening. As you all know, Flexi Strong Talks is a noble initiative by Sham Steel. Our efforts are to make your life better and happier. Today, you're going to meet someone who not only smiles himself 24 by 7, but make sure that he puts a smile on everyone's face in meetings or in his interactions. So, friends, please join me to welcome the young, the charming, and the great human being, Mr. Deepak Ramola.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deepak Ramola, and through my organization Project Fuel, for the last 10, 11 years, I have been documenting life lessons of people from all around the world. And through these documentation drives, through this collection, there are many a times one comes across perspectives and ideas that really not only inform you, but enthrall you with how people live their lives. One of the themes and major questions asked across the world is about happiness. How to be happy, if you are happy, how to sustain it, and more so, how do we create and cultivate a routine where happiness happens by default? I wanted to share some of those life lessons with you today. But first, let me begin with a story. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the king who was a little bit unhappy with his life and decided to go across his city and see and meet his people. So as the king drives in his chariot and moves from house to house, lane to lane, fields to field, he gets to see all these people complaining about something. Everybody was a little bit miserable until the king comes across a farmer who is working in stringent heat, excruciating sun and heat, and is singing a song, just invested in his field under the scorching sun, and singing to himself as he's plowing his land. And the king could not believe it, that amidst such discomfort a man could be this happy. So the king returns to his palace, calls his, wise, trusted council, and says, I, the king of such a big reign and kingdom, I am not happy. Why is that farmer happy? And so the council men say to the king, we forgot to tell you that he is not part of the 99 club. The king inquires, what is the 99 club? And they say, you don't worry, we'll take care of it. That night, the king's councilmen place a bag of 99 coins at the door of the farmer. When he wakes up next morning to discover that bag of coins, he brings it in, he's overjoyed, and he starts counting. When he starts to count, he realizes there are only 99 coins. But whoever would have left that bag would have must left 100 coins. So he spends the day and the following day trying to find that one coin that might have gotten dropped in and around his house. When he reaches a point of no fruition, he decides that he has to now earn to make sure that that odd number 99 gets turned into an even 100. And so from day 3, the farmer spends the entire day trying to work double as hard to be able to make the money to buy the 100th gold coin. Over a month, he realizes that that is not sufficient. So he starts working at night. He starts involving his wife, his daughters, his son, and slowly the entire family gets consumed in working round the clock across the fields to be able to get money. When time passes and this farmer realizes that he will never have enough money, or it's going to take many many years for him to have the amount of money to be able to buy that 100 coin, he becomes more agitated, he becomes more angry, he becomes more frustrated, he starts fighting and arguing with his wife, he starts uh, probably beating up or having a bad behavior towards his children, and he completely shifts in his characteristic. The king's councilmen returned to the palace to inform the king joyously that the one happy person in the kingdom is now part of the 99 Club. The king asks, "Can you now tell me what is the 99 Club?" And so the wise councilmen share. 99 Club, or the Club of the 99, consists of those people who have 99 things in their life to be grateful for, but they are always seeking that one thing that is missing, and they spend their entire space, time, mindset in finding that one thing without ever acknowledging the 99 other good things that they have. I love that story because it encourages you to think, do you want to be part of the 99 Club? Are you already in the club and want to get out of it to be able to appreciate all that is there? Happiness is an elusive state of mind, as they say, the biggest of sages, the best of philosophers, and the most amount of scientists who have researched on it, that the more you chase happiness, the more it kind of drives away from you. It is almost to be cultivated in our daily routine. In my escapades and adventures of meeting beautiful people almost across 40 countries, I have realized that people have very, very simple ways in which they preserve, cultivate, and sustain their happiness. And in that sense, these techniques, these tools, don't seem that difficult. Everybody has their own survival mechanism and has their own survival tool to be able to ensure that they are almost happy, as much as they can. So, one of the first lessons that I learned while teaching in Kalimpong, West Bengal, very early on in my career, came from a 14-year-old girl. And she said to me, Deepak, most people introduce themselves with details. When someone says, "Tell me about yourself," the general automated response is, "My name is Deepak Ramola, and I'm the founder and artistic director of Project Fuel." People say their title, their job position, a couple of accolades here and there, and that's about it. But she said that was problematic because that defined what you do. The trick, she said, lied in sharing with people or introducing yourself with love. An introduction with love means to enjoy the process of making someone aware about who you are, not just what you do. Many people, when they have an opportunity to make someone aware about themselves, throw up their resume. We try to impress people with what we have accomplished. But if that title and position was to be taken away from you, who would you be then? And if no amount of conventional success, medals and certificates and promotions were to happen for a few years, would you still be able to introduce yourself with the same amount of generosity and grit? Introduction with love allows us to see ourselves for who we truly are and the philosophies that guide our life. And when we introduce ourselves with with that compassion to somebody, most certainly people remember that about you. And if we are able to present to our readers, our viewers, our audience, whether at home or at work or in the world at large, the the epicenter and the central force that drives us, we will be able to be much more happy because it is not a title we are driven with or from, but it is us that we start from, and it is us that we are getting to. One of the other life lessons that came to me was from a woman named Sophie, who I met in France. And Sophie said to me that, Deepak, life has taught me that you have to try to relate to everyone with a sense of humor. Now, let me explain that for a minute. What she meant was that when you meet people you don't see eye to eye, either at work or in social situations, having a sense of humor can be your biggest armor. What happens is We all are confronted in life with situations where, somebody's narrow mindedness about where we come from, somebody's ignorance about, you know, our philosophies or our opinions will always uh, clash with your ideologies, with your way of living. And in those situations, instead of being offended, if you lean back and allow yourself to be amused, you will live a much more relaxed life. That I can promise. It is in allowing yourself to know that you can feel better, you can think better, and nothing in the world has the power to reduce you or make you shrink in the moment because somebody else differs in their thought process than yours. That's the second life lesson. Try to relate to everything with a sense of humor. The third life lesson that I wanted to share with you comes from an 8-year-old girl named Stella Loeb from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States of America. 8-year-old Stella says her life lesson is wake up happy every day. Now, on the surface, that might seem like, a casual, almost fantasy centric oriented advice from a young girl. But truly, this life lesson made me believe and think that if you start your day with the simple act of stretching your lips and smiling for even 5 to 10 seconds, you are in a very conscious way setting an intention and executing an action to be able to facilitate happiness and joy for the day that has just opened its door to you. What 8-year-old Stella shared was that nobody ever told her. But as she woke up every morning and tried to smile, slowly she started feeling happy, or visions and ideas or experiences from the past that have brought her joy, getting, sparked up in her mind. That process began. What 8-year-old Stella discovered for herself has been the discovery of leading scientists across the world. Smiling, research has proven, tricks your mind into believing that joy is happening. And so it automatically allows for you to be able to integrate with more happy thoughts. In my classes across the world, one of the things I loved doing was asking people who all want to be happy in life. And of course, certainly, if you're being authentic and honest, everybody would raise their hands up in the air. And then I would follow up with the simple activity requesting them to smile for 5 minutes without any external dependency of a reason or a joke being cracked. And you would not believe, within 15-20 seconds, people's pretentious act of keeping their smile up starts to fizzle out, their jaws start to hurt. And then the question that we often discuss was, if you cannot smile for 5 minutes without any reason, can you be happy 24/7? What would that take, and how much of a participation would that require from your end? Well, my only request is 5 seconds or 10 seconds of smiling in the morning maybe activates your joyous muscles towards feeling more happy. Happiness, as they say, is a choice you make or an obligation. It is not a pot of gold you discover at the end of the rainbow, rather, a muscle you build with every decision you take. I have met some truly optimistic people in my life, but the one that I most remember is Hadi, a 27-year-old, sharp looking, joyous human being. I was on a 90-day tour across Europe documenting life lessons of Syrian refugees. And Hadi told me that his life lesson was be happy no matter what happens. That lesson, coming from a Syrian refugee who had to leave his home, his people behind, to come to a foreign land and start afresh, was a bit revelatory. So I asked him to tell me how he learned that. Hadi shared that before he took the boat to flee from Syria, He looked at a lot of YouTube videos where people were plopping themselves onto these life rafts and traveling through the dangerous sea route. And he thought to himself, I would never do that. I would never risk my life so much that I'm in a position to drown or to not be alive. But as the war approached closer and closer to his doorstep, he had no chance but to smuggle himself out through the sea road. He found himself sitting in a boat with 44 other people. And he said, you won't believe. As the boat started to move, the people started to sing. He said, I was so happy and mesmerized with that because there we were in the middle of the ocean, no person to be seen other than the ones on the boat, anywhere you look, just water everywhere, and people singing. And he said those people taught him that a moment must be enjoyed, even if it is the hardest. Don't you like yourself when you're happy? Who doesn't? Happiness guides you to better things, Hadi said to me. Happiness guides us to better things. And all the time that accumulates or gets lost in the transition story of our struggle makes us want to be more happy because it also reminds us of the guilt and the burden we carry for all the times that we should or could have been a little more joyous but decided not to. In participating and thinking about conversations of happiness, there are a few things that have helped me personally and that I have learned. One of those is call your cheerleaders before you call your critiques. That's one of the greatest ways to restore your happiness and maintain your sanity. Whenever we have a new idea, whenever we have a great news to share, a lot of people have the tendency to ring up people who will tell them why that idea is a failure. And maybe it is, it will tank later. But as you are excited with the energy and the enthusiasm of something new, try to call up people who will play not your devil's advocates, but your angel advocates. People who will be more curious to understand how did you come up with that idea? What do you plan to do with it? So that much later in execution, even if that idea does not see the light of the day, you at least were able to drive some sort of catharsis, some sort of excitement out of it while you thought about it. The other lesson that guides me on a daily basis is to forgive yourself for not knowing. The most exhausting act in the world is when you do not have an answer, you are not well informed about something, and you have to constantly keep pretending that you do. Not only will people start to avoid you, but they will also grow suspicious of your ability to learn. Knowledge is acquiring of information. Wisdom is the ability to use it to your advantage. So, when you find yourself in situations where you do not know the answer, where you do not have the answer or an opinion to the question being posed, look within yourself and ask, do I really have something to say? Or am I only sharing or saying things to be able to seek validation? And in that process, you will be able to better inform yourself if you are able to withdraw and confess that you don't know enough. Forgiving yourself for not knowing enough creates room for you to know better and do better, to learn, to ask questions. There is a Chinese proverb that says, the one who asks remains a fool for 5 minutes, the one who doesn't remains a fool for a lifetime. So it's better to confess and ask. And many a times in my life, I have really experienced this, that when I forgive myself for not knowing, I can breathe easy, I can be more curious, and I can lean in to know from people what I do not. Lastly, my advice or suggestion to you to find or cultivate happiness in your life is to own your story. It's a lesson that I champion with all my energy and my loudest voice. Owning your story means to be proud of who you are and where you come from. every single thing that has happened to you, to not be reduced or defeated by it, but to be propelled by it and to rise with it. Whether you come from a middle class family, whether you come from an ethnic background, a tribal community, whether your complexion is of a certain degree of color, whether or not you went to school, whether or not you are able to pay for your next meal, being able to own your story, your experiences will give you the kind of protections bodyguards can't provide you. So take a moment to think, what is your story? How have you been telling it to others? And are you really proud of it? And next time, when you sit across familiar and unfamiliar faces, be really proud of yourself. If you're breathing, that means you have made it. You are successful. Every day brings with itself its own shares of struggles and battles. And if you are able to see and survive to see the next morning sun, that means you were able to win, or at least found a way around all the battles that yesterday presented on your way. These might seem like very simple, very conventional, very day to day advices that I'm offering, but these are the techniques that have helped thousands of people around the world survive. And it is always and often in simple things that happiness is curling up for you to reach out, discover, absorb, and glow in its light. Thank you for joining in, and I hope in these difficult times of the COVID crisis, these lessons, these stories provide you some comfort. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Deepak. That was such a wonderful talk. You said that own your story. So probably, if you can throw some light in terms of what motivated you to get into this unconventional profession of or your passion of collecting life lessons.
Unfortunately, you cannot Google people's life lessons. You have to be a certain degree of rich or famous to have your wisdom up on the internet. And so I wanted to change that. I wanted common people to know that their story matters and what they are learning in their lives can be useful to other people while they are still on planet Earth.
We have another question from Mr. Vishal Khandelwal. He's saying he's very conscious of everything. Always been sitting in the back benches, always scared to ask questions. Now, always thinking about log kya kahenge. Now, so he wants to know how does he get over this log kya kahenge kind of syndrome that he's suffering from, though I don't think it is true because he just asked a question today.
Yes, absolutely. पहले तो विशाल जी, थैंक यू फॉर आस्किंग द क्वेश्चन. आई थिंक यू आर ओवरकमिंग योर ओन फियर. दूसरा, लोग क्या कहेंगे का जो डर है, मैं आपको इस बात से रिलीव करूं क्योंकि मैं भी इस डर से बहुत ज्यादा, जैसे कहते हैं, इसके प्रकोप में था. बट मैंने बहुत सालों बाद रियलाइज किया, पीपल डोंट पे दैट मच अटेंशन टू यू. लोग सिर्फ एक पल के लिए कुछ बात कहेंगे, उसके बाद अपनी जिंदगी जीने लग जाएंगे. हम जो वो सुनते हैं, हम उस एक पल की बात को 1 घंटा, 1 दिन, 1 हफ्ता, 1 महीना, एक जिंदगी दे देते हैं, ये सोचते हुए कि उसने उस एक पल में ये बात क्यों कही. So I try to play fair. If somebody said something bad about me, and they took 5 minutes, I will only feel bad for 5 minutes, or I will only overthink for 5 minutes. I will not give them the 6th free minute because then they win. I want to win for myself. इसलिए I will not lie. I also overthink. I also get hurt. I also feel disappointed. But I try to balance it with exactly the amount of time the person spent who's hurt me on that thing. And so it creates a fair balance. दूसरा, मैं आपसे ये कहूंगा कि बैक वेंचर होना प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, सवाल ना पूछना प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. इसको इस दृष्टि से देखिए कि आपकी जितनी भी नॉलेज है, आपके जितने भी अनुभव हैं, अगर आप उन्हें बांट नहीं रहे तो आप ऑटोमेटिकली सेल्फिश हो जा रहे हैं. क्योंकि आपसे कोई सीख सकता है, आपसे कोई सुन के हंस सकता है, मुस्कुरा सकता है, कुछ समझ सकता है. तो हम जितना होल्ड ऑन करते हैं अपनी एक्सपीरियंसेस को लोगों से बांटने में, उतना ही हम काइंडनेस क्वेश्चन दुनिया में कम करते हैं.
And the next question, probably the Mr. Abhijit who is asking the question, probably he knew that you're going to talk about happiness index. So his next question is, there is one aspect of happiness index where countries like Finland, Holland, Austria generally score very high and they are probably top of the table. Why, in spite of being a land of spirituality, spiritual gurus, etc., why we are still so much lagging behind in our happiness index? Is that the way to measure also?
That's a very interesting question. Abhijit, thank you for asking that. You see, there are different ways people have lived their spiritual thoughts across world cultures. When you think Greek and Roman culture, their wisdom is based on the principle of logic. They keep questioning why you feel what you feel, how you feel. Aristotle, Socrates, all of these, Marcus Aurelius, all of these thought leaders base their thinking and their spirituality on the act of logical thinking. When you look at China and when you look at that part of the world, the wisdom of spirituality is based on the question of yin and yang, the good and the bad, as they believe. If there is divine force, there has to be evil. If there is lightness, there is darkness. Only in Indian spiritual living and lifestyle, you see that the spirituality is based on the knowledge of the self. When you understand the I and you understand your own universe, you've understood the universe of the person sitting next to you and of every single person who's on planet Earth. So Indian spirituality is focused on I. Now, two things happen with that. As a spiritual concept, we talk about I, but when we live it, we always talk about the we. आप एक संगठित परिवार में रहते हैं, आप दूसरों के बारे में सोचते हैं, आप दूसरों की खुशियों के बारे में सोचते हैं. So the first clash happens there, that we know we have to take care of ourselves, but we feel guilty about taking care of ourselves, और हम चाहते हैं कि अगर दूसरा खुश होगा तो उसमें हम अपनी खुशी ढूंढ लेंगे. पहली प्रॉब्लम ये है. दूसरा ये है कि हमारे आपने फिनलैंड और हॉलैंड जैसी कंट्रीज का नाम कहा. आई हैव स्पेंड टाइम देयर टॉकिंग टू पीपल. उनके चैलेंजेस हमारे चैलेंजेस से बहुत अलग हैं. हमारी आर्थिक असुरक्षा, फाइनेंशियल इनसिक्योरिटी, हमारे पारिवारिक गठन और हमारी बेसिक रोटी कपड़ा और मकान की नीड इतनी हाई है कि हम उनके बियॉन्ड अपने आप से इंडल्ज करना, हमारे सेल्फ लव, सेल्फ ग्रोथ, इन चीजों तक तो ध्यान ही नहीं जाता अगर आपका सारा फोकस इस बात पर है कि घर की अगली रोटी, अगली इनकम, अगले महीने का बिल कैसे पे होगा. तो इन कंट्रीज के लिए इजी है हैप्पीनेस इंडेक्स में ऊपर आना, क्योंकि इनके बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट्स जो हैं डे टू डे लिविंग के, वो टेकन केयर ऑफ हैं. हमारे वो चैलेंजेस अभी भी हमारे सामने हैं और हम उनसे जूझते हैं, और उस चक्कर में कहीं ना कहीं हम वो जो सेल्फ इन्वेस्टमेंट वाला टाइम है वो नहीं निकाल पाते. सो मुझे लगता है इट इज ओके. हर इंसान एक फिल्म है, उसमें एक डायलॉग मैंने सुना था, जावेद अख्तर साहब ने लिखा था कि हर इंसान अपनी कामयाबी और नाकामयाबी खुद ही चुनता है. उसी प्रकार हर इंसान अपनी खुशी और नाखुशी खुद ही चुनता है.
The next question from Devraj: when good work is done and it's not recognized, how do I deal with it?
If you did the good work only for the recognition, then I think there is a problem. I'll tell you why. We say, who wrote Mahabharata? We know Lord Ganesha recited it, but we think Ved Vyas wrote it, right? We all know Ved Vyas wrote the Mahabharata. But actually, do you know Ved Vyas is not a person? It's a position. And the person who wrote Mahabharata was the 10th Ved Vyas, and his name was Krishna Dvipayan. And nobody knows that. So I would say, create your own levels of recognition. Embrace small beginnings from the very point you start on a project, so that even if nobody was to stand and clap and cheer for you, it would not bother you. And whoever asked this question, I want to tell you that it's been, for me, 12 years running Project Fuel. I won the first award for Project Fuel 4 years ago. So you can imagine that for almost 8 years, nobody paid attention or gave the conventional certificate, award, recognition to my work. But I had to keep myself motivated because I knew what I was doing was far more important than a clap or a cheer. And if I had no audience, I would still be doing it.
The next question we have is, how do we overcome procrastination? I keep postponing things. I just, don't kind of finish things. So how do I come over it or come out of it?
You're asking a procrastinator about how to overcome procrastination, so it's going to sound like a flimsy answer. But I am a gold medal in procrastination. I delay things till I feel ready to process them. I am not a procrastinator in certain things, and from that experience, I can tell you when I'm writing a book, I am not a procrastinator. And what I try to build is a routine. I wake up every morning, and no matter how I'm feeling, no matter how much sun is outside, if it's pouring outside, if there is a hailstorm, I write one page. And I do that for at least 6 to 7 months till I feel the first draft of the book is ready. And when I follow that discipline, I've realized, Lokesh, in many ways, having a routine and having a to-do list allows you to get over procrastination. Actually, let me tell you another amazing thing. Don't make a to-do list at the start of the day. Make it for a week at the end of the day. And try to see what were you able to accomplish without making a to-do list. And when you do that, you will start to see a pattern. On an average basis, are you only able to do 6 to 7 things, 7 to 8 things? Are all those things really big, tedious efforts, or are those small things? And studying that pattern will make you, first of all, more relaxed. And second of all, will make you feel really good that you were able to accomplish things in the day. So make a to-do list at the end of the day, not at the start of the day.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for those lovely life lessons. I am sure our viewers would have immensely benefited from those wonderful lessons. I also want to thank Shyam Steel for this wonderful initiative, and a very special thanks to each one of you for joining us this evening. On behalf of Flexi Strong Talks, I would like to make a humble request to each one of you. Please stay safe, stay indoors, use double mask, and step out only if necessary. So friends, till we meet again in the next episode, this is Lokesh Nathani signing off. And प्लीज़ 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 स्वस्थ रहें, मस्त रहें और हमेशा मुस्कुराते रहें. नमस्कार.